Hey, g'day, it's Prezzo here, back in the shop. Thanks for joining me. Well, I've got some news and some exciting news today, so let's get into it. Okay, let's do the news first. I've got a number of people I need to thank in today's video. The first one is Nathan from Cumbria in the UK. Now, he's got a channel called Mr. Mechanical, and he's doing some wonderful projects, one of which is building a Caterham race car, a scale model that is, and he's got the chassis built. He's doing all of the mechanical components on his home shop equipment, and he's doing it for the right reasons too. He's been quite honest about the fact that he's doing it for the learning experience only, and I respect that. You know, sometimes you build a project and there's no real outcome at the end of it except that you have learned a lot about engineering and machining. So thanks Nathan, your sticker's up on the wall as you can see, and check out his videos. He also did a fantastic lathe restoration as well. Next person I want to talk about is James Long from Boring Research in Boring, Oregon. And I purchased a tool from Boring Research recently to set up a spindle on my Bridgeport mill. And James got in touch with me. He was quite thankful for the exposure that I gave to the tool that they make. And he offered to send me another of their tools. Now, I'd done a video on drag engraving using the CNC milling machine. And Boring Research make a drag engraving tool. And he was offering to send me one free of charge. Now, like an idiot, I declined the offer. I've sort of got this thing about maintaining some sort of credibility on this channel, and I didn't think it was right to accept free tools and then review them and say something nice about them, even though those tools might have some faults or some shortcomings. So I agreed to buy the tool from Boring Research, and I think they split the difference with me on the shipping from the US, and I'll show you that tool shortly and a project that I have in mind for it. Next person I want to thank is Trevor Killip from Auckland in New Zealand. I'd made a video recently about the Bridgeport mill, and this is the little waterproof cover that goes on the rapid switch on the X-axis power feed. The one that I had was all perished and falling apart, and Trevor had a couple of these brand new and the switch, and he agreed to send those to me free of charge as a gift. So I was very grateful, because I looked on eBay and I thought I'm never going to find one of these things, but there you go, I got a brand new one and it fits perfectly, does the job. Now, Trevor also sent me this beautiful leather pouch. He runs a company called Leatherform New Zealand Limited, and this is all handmade, I'm guessing, and made from pure leather, beautifully made. And it goes on your belt, so it's got a little belt loop there. And I'm going to wear that next time I'm overseas with putting all my spare change in, because you tend to accumulate a lot of it when you're traveling around, and it always scratches my phone and my camera. So yeah, I'm going to wear that. That's fantastic. So thanks, Trevor. The next person I want to thank is Stuart Goddard. Now, Stuart lives in Australia. He had watched the video I had done on powder coating, and he had purchased a large amount of powder coat from a company that was going out of business. He had boxes and boxes of the stuff, and he agreed to send me some of this powder coat free of charge. I paid for the postage, but he gave me this powder coat. And this is all despite being in a very serious car accident. And Stuart sent me a photo of his car, and it was certainly scary looking at the amount of damage in that vehicle. Stuart and his wife were injured, and they are still recovering, but despite all of that, Stuart got me this stuff in the mail. So I, once again, really appreciate it. I love this colour. It's called Parakeet, and I'm very keen to try that out. So once again, thank you, Stuart. Next up, I want to thank a gentleman named Martin Gray. Now, Martin lives in Manchester in the United Kingdom, and Martin is doing a full restoration on a Bridgeport mill. His is a bit newer than mine, and he and I were sort of comparing notes about the process of tearing one of these machines down, restoring it, putting it back together again. And we were talking about this on email, and I'd mentioned that the collet alignment screw that fits up inside the R8 taper in the spindle, on my machine, that screw was a bit damaged on the end, and I was a bit reluctant to put it back. It was also missing the lock screw as well. And although I have read that some people just take them out and leave them out, I want to be able to fit a pneumatic drawbar on this machine. So I thought it was worth keeping that collet alignment screw in there. And you can see that it is there at the moment, and it is working, but without the lock screw and with the damaged end on it, I was a bit worried that it was going to cause some damage to the the tooling, or it was going to allow this to rotate. So Martin agreed to buy that screw for me and the lock screw and send them out in the mail. And one of the reasons that's a huge bonus for me is that if I was to order that part from one of the Bridgeport suppliers in the USA or the UK, the shipping charges for such a tiny part are outrageous. So thank you very much, Martin. That's impressive, the way people have come out of the woods and offered things to me which I sort of never expected. It's quite strange, really, but in a good way, if you know what I mean. Now, I mentioned boring research before, and the tool that I purchased just recently arrived just in the last week. This is it here. It's a drag engraving tool. Now, I did a video on drag engraving, and I find that a really useful process here in my shop. And I purchased a tool from eBay a number of years ago, and I'll show you. It's this one here, and it's a fairly chunky affair, and it works great. But the problem with it is that these engraving tips are just sort of like a press fit, and there's always a danger that that can just shoot out of there and catch on something. And so far I haven't had a problem with it, but I've been very aware that that could be an issue. And when James got in touch with me from Boring Research, he said they make a tool and it's magnetic, as you can see there. So there's the spare spring for it, and there's one of the spare diamond tips. Now these are actually diamond. The other one that I have, I think, is just carbide. And these fit up inside this spring-loaded spindle here, but because it's magnetic, it sort of can't drop out. So you put it in part way, and it just hits the magnet and comes up against the spring, and there's really no way they can fall out of there. So I'm really keen to give this a try out on a project. And James was very kind and sent me 2 spare diamond tips and a carbide tip, and I think he mentioned that these carbide tools are made by Dremel. So yeah, there you go. That's the drag engraving tool, and I'll show you the project I have in mind. This is the protractor scale off the head of the Bridgeport mill, and this is just made of aluminium. I'm guessing it's sort of screen printed or engraved in some way, and it's pretty badly damaged, as you can see. Now, you can buy these new as replacement parts, but I'd really like to have a go at doing this myself, and I'm thinking that I can engrave into either stainless steel or aluminium sheet and then powder coat the engraved lines. And if I draw this up correctly, I can do this on a bigger sheet of material, because you have to engrave over the edge of the scale, and that's always a bit of a problem. So if I do this on a bigger sheet of material, I can do all the engraving, do the powder coating, and then cut that strip out on a guillotine. So that's going to be the subject of a future video, and we'll see whether I can make that work or not. But yeah, you sort of think about all these projects and you say, well, I've got this amazing tool, what can I do with it? Well, there you go, that's going to be the project. Okay, and now for the exciting news, and I'm guessing you're wondering where this is all going. A couple of days ago I got an email from YouTube, and they sent me this jolly little animation to celebrate the fact that I now had 10,000 subscribers. In fact, I think it's up to about 10,600 at this point. And for me, that was a big deal. Now, I never expected this channel to go anywhere. I started this mainly as a way of just archiving some of the projects that I do. And that's why I tend to do these things as a sort of narrative style. They're not really how-to videos, they're just what I do in the workshop, and some people find that entertaining. And I've tried to illustrate that people are willing to share your passions and interests and get on board with what you're doing. And so many people have been kind and helpful over the years that I felt like I wanted to give something back. So what I'm proposing is that I'm going to give away this little rotary demagnetizing tool that I made in the last video. Now, I made 2 of these. I gave one to a friend. This one is spare. I've already got one on my own, which I'll show you shortly. But the way this will work is that if you leave a comment on today's video, and if you look at the publication date for this video, I'll leave a 5-day window, and if you get your comment in during that 5 days, I can pick a random commenter. YouTube actually has a tool to allow me to do that. And if your name comes up, I'll get in touch and I'll get your contact details and I'll send you this anywhere in the world at my expense. Now these little tools are great. The good thing about them is that they're super effective, super safe, they don't require any batteries or electricity, and it can just sit beside your drill press or your lathe, and it can be set up in minutes, seconds, and it's totally effective. Now this is the one that I made. This is made of mild steel with a Delrin cap, and it doesn't seem to make any difference that this is a magnetic body and this is non-magnetic. Remember, this is stainless steel and aluminium. It seems to be effective no matter what you make these out of, and I'm guessing that you could make one of these yourself out of totally 3D printed plastic. You can make it out of wood. It doesn't need to look pretty. The only requirement is that you have 4 rare earth magnets arranged underneath that cap. Now I have seen one of these where the magnets were exposed, but you tend to get a lot of scuffing and a lot of wear and tear on that surface there, so I think having the cap on it is a good idea. And all you need to do is make sure that the magnets are arranged so that the poles are flipped. So as you can see, this one has a north pole facing outwards, this has a south, north, south. You can have 4 magnets, 6, 8, 10, doesn't matter, as long as there's an even number. And obviously the diameter gets bigger if you use bigger arrangements of magnets. But it would work exactly the same way. And the operation is very simple. If you've got a tool like a screwdriver, and these seem to be the worst offenders for picking up magnetic fields, all you need to do is spin the rotary tool in the drill press or the lathe, place the shank of the tool somewhere in the middle, and then as you spin the rotary demag tool, just slowly withdraw the tool away from the center of that magnetic field and just keep going. You need to take it, around about, 300 millimeters or a foot from the center or center axis of that tool. And what happens, of course, is that the screwdriver picks up an alternating magnetic field. And after a while, as you withdraw that, it just sort of gives up and it just says, you know what, I think I'll just be non-magnetic. And that's essentially the operation. So, you don't need to have my rubbishy old rusty one. You can have this nice new one here. So I hope you get on board with this. Like I say, just leave a comment. You don't need to be a subscriber, but seriously, subscribe. And if your name comes up in the draw, like I say, I'll send this out to you. So I'm going to finish this video up here now, and I invite you to leave a comment, and hopefully, we can connect, and it's all going to work out well. So I'll catch you on the next video, and it's Prezzo signing out for now, and thanks for watching. See ya.